Hello and welcome back to Unlocking Sibelius. This is part 2. In the last video, we went over how to create and prepare a preset in contact or complete control for Sibelius and your DAW. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, there's no need to rush to it right now since these first two videos can be done in any order. But I do believe the best way to gradually absorb all the necessary information you'll need is to go in the order that I set. If you would like to go in order, which I highly suggest, then please pause this video and check out Unlocking Sibelius Part 1 Contact. Should show up somewhere around here if I figure that out. In Part 1, I decided we'll be using Native Instruments Symphony Series Orchestra as a template for this tutorial. But as a quick reminder, you can use any library that you want. I only chose this one in particular because it's not overly complicated and it shows off the concepts that I'll be talking about very well. Now, if you are following along, then please comment below what libraries you're using. I'm very curious to see what you guys are using to create your own sound sets. And along that vein, please like, share, and subscribe. I originally wasn't going to do this typical YouTube stuff, but I really want this information to get out there. And to do that, you got to play the game. So here we are. Now, before we get started, make sure you download the sound set editor. This is the program that we'll be using to build our own custom sound set, and the link to where you can download it will be in the description below. Once you have it downloaded, we can move on to the next step. Alright, so we're in it. Now this is what it looks like when we first open up the sound set editor. I'll attempt to add in some timestamps so you'll all be able to go back to specific sections for review. And basically, each of these tabs at the top is where the timestamps will be. So to start us off is the General tab. And this is probably the easiest section we'll go through because all you need to do is leave everything the way it is except name it. And this is going to be the name that we see in Sibelius. So it should be distinctive to the library you're using. For instance, since I'm using Symphony Series, I'm going to name this Symphony Series. All right, we're going to leave the type as MIDI because that's the easiest. Number of channels is 16. That's standard. Programs count from 1. Reg expression used for device matching. Don't worry about that. And supports pitch, bend, range. That's fine. So this is the General tab, and all we're going to do is name it. The next tab we'll be using is a Controllers tab. And here's where we establish what parameters are going to be used by our library. For example, if you're doing a lot of orchestral stuff or just anything inside your DAW, you're using modulation. And so here's where we establish that. We're going to name it modulation. The type is going to be numeric, meaning CC data. And we all know modulation is CC1. Binary is for if it's an on or off switch, much like sustain, where you would have on at 127, off at 0, and then you can also set where the default value is. So for me, I like the default of modulation to be right in the middle, which is 64. It's a non-binary thing, so it's not an on-off switch. Volume, these are all kind of built into it already, so you don't really have to touch it. 64 is the middle, so that's usually what it's going to be. Now to add a new one, because I already know another controller we'll be needing, is expression. So you would click new down here at the bottom, and you see that it pops up. And then you would name it controller, we're going to name it expression. And it's numeric, otherwise you have Sibelius player, but we're not using Sibelius player, we're using our own thing, so leave it at numeric. Expression is CC number 11. I'm going to set it to that. And then default, you can leave it at 0 if you want, but personally, most of my libraries, if they're at 0, then they don't make any sound. So I don't want that to be the norm. I want the middle to be the norm. So I'm going to make mine 64 again. So we have all these for controllers, and this is what we're telling the sound set editor to control in Sibelius. And that will get transferred to our DAW as well. There's some stuff that's already inherently done, so you don't need to do like velocity. Really, you just should add expression, and there's some specialty other things for different types of libraries and stuff. But really, all you have to do for now is just add expression. That'll probably be what 99% of you guys would need. Since we added everything we need to in the controllers tab, mainly just expression, we'll move on to the volumes tab. Now, the volume tab isn't talking about, the dB slider on in your DAW or in Sibelius. It's mainly talking about the dynamic volume, I guess is the best way to put it. So what samples or what parameters can make the samples sound piano or forte? That's what we're talking about. And so we see that we have three values here already, three common ones. One is the velocity, note on velocity. The method is default, which is velocity. Otherwise, you would put controller like the mod wheel. Okay, so we have mod wheel. You could also rename this. I think I'll rename this to modulation. Actually, no, mod wheel is fine. The method, like I said, default is note on velocity. So it's just the velocity. Controller is what we want. So controller is harkening back to that first tab that we had. This is what I was saying. This is what we're using to control these things. So the controller that we have is all these. So we're going to choose modulation, which is CC1. And then you have the good old volume slider. But like I said, we want this for dynamics. Now your library, this is why it's also good to know your library too. Your library may control the dynamics by expression. So if it does that, or even if it doesn't, actually, if it does, yeah, we'll keep it there. We're going to add a new one. So you click new here at the bottom, and then we're going to name that one expression. And we're going to assign this to the expression controller. All right. The next tab we have are attack types. Attack types are similar to volume types in that in this tab we'll be assigning controllers to different parameters. And for attack types, I guess the best way to describe what it's controlling is probably expression or velocity, like for accents and such. So by default, we already have the velocity controlling it. So like, let's say, you have a drum part, and you have the snare playing, and you want accents. What's the parameter that's gonna accentuate and make that different from the other notes? That's what we're controlling here. Sometimes it's velocity, and sometimes it's expression. Sometimes it's modulation too. Depends on your library. So let's add both of those. We'll add mod wheel, and the method we'll do controller, and it automatically defaults to the first controller, which is modulation, and then we'll add a second one, which is expression. Again, controller, but it defaults to the first one. We're going to move it to this expression. So now we have three different parameters controlling the attacks of notes. Now you guys ready for this? The switch types tab, which is the next one, is probably going to be the biggest part of this video, so strap in. Everything else we did was leading up to this tab, but first, let's open up our contact preset. We did the woodwind section first. Again, guys, you just gotta love it how quickly that loads. And just a quick review, since for some reason Symphony wins, it always loads a little bit of samples. You go to the Save tab, go to Global Purge, Reset Markers, go back up to the Save tab, Global Purge, Update Sample Pool, and that gets rid of all the sample data. All right, so we probably don't need to see that. We just need to see this main section. So the switch type tabs could also be called key switch tabs, but it's basically just how is your instrument talking to Sibelius, and when does it know when to make a note a different articulation. I'll show you what I mean. The first thing we're gonna go do is in the sound set editor, near the bottom we have this thing that says new. We're gonna click that, and this is for the types. So I'll probably do a few of these, but 3 main ones would be for the 3 sections: woodwinds, brass, and strings. Percussion, those will be kind of specialized, and that'll be in another video. So this one in particular, we're gonna do just the woodwind section, since this is what we did in the first video, just the woodwind section. So we can call it woodwinds. The next thing that we're gonna do is under sound ID change, you see that this new thing added. Yeah, this new thing came up. In sound ID change, sound IDs, there's 2 different types of sound IDs for Sibelius. One is for the articulations, and another type is for the instruments. This one is specifically for the articulations. Okay, so this switch types is going to be just for articulations. Now you'll see that when we are in this sound ID change and we go down to the bottom and click add, it'll add a brand new one that says reset. Now reset is kind of like the normal sound. So whatever your library uses that you consider to be the normal sound, for instance, in Symphony series, sustain all would be what I would consider the quote unquote normal sound. It doesn't have anything else. You could also make vibrato all the normal too, but I think we're just gonna do sustain. But as opposed to staccato or double tongue, flutter tongue, stuff like that. So whatever you consider to be the normal, that's what this is going to be. And so right here is, right under sound ID, you're going to say reset in brackets. Leave that as it is. Right underneath that, we have volume type. Now volume type is referencing the volume tab that we were at before. And I said that this is controlling more or less the dynamics. Some libraries use velocity and mod wheel. I think this one does. So what I'm gonna do is, actually, no, I remember what it is. For this particular library, sorry, we're gonna have the volume type be the mod wheel. And then the attack type, the woodwinds in this library don't use expression. So the attack type here is gonna be the velocity. All right, and we're still not done yet, because now after we establish what the sound is, we have to establish how it connects to our library. So that's where actions come in. So under the actions bar, we're gonna go to add once again. And you can make this as a controller. I don't think you should. Let me know in the comments, because I have a few libraries that I have one library that uses the controller instead of key switches. So let me know if you wanted me to make a video out of that. But we're gonna go to key switch. And all this is it correlates to what is in your library. Now, I want you guys to be aware that for some reason, Sibelius, its lowest value for keys is -1. And so that kind of means that everything else, I think everything else uses -2 generally as their lowest. So what you have to do is you kind of have to compensate for that. So as you can see in the flutes over here, it says C-1 for sustain all. But we're going to bump that up an octave to compensate for that difference. Now, you guys might have to test this out on your own for your own libraries, but this is what I know for this library. We're going to make this C0, and you can see that it says key switch 12, the 12th key, C0. And that's all for that one. Next, I think, for sustain vibrato, I'm actually gonna call this. I'm gonna make this the legato. So when we have a slur mark in Sibelius, it's gonna trigger this key switch. Okay. So again, we're gonna go to sound ID change. We're gonna go to add, and you see it defaults to reset, but that's not what it's gonna be. So for this sound ID, like I said, there's a one for the articulations, and then there's sound IDs for your instruments. For the articulations, most likely what it'll be is plus and then your articulation name. There are some exceptions, like for mute or for consordino, for strings, it's actually going to be plus mute. Same thing with like the trumpets, they use plus mute. It's kind of like a neutral thing. But for the most part, it's going to be plus legato. And keep it lowercase. And make sure you spell everything exactly how it should be. Now, there's a place in Sibelius where you can find this. Maybe at the end of the video, I'll have timestamps. You can see how I get to find these sound IDs for your articulations. But just for right now, just trust me. So volume type, we're going to keep it the same as we did for the reset value. So it's going to be mod wheel and note on velocity. And again, we're going to add the key switch, and this one is C sharp -1, but to account for the difference, we're going to call it C sharp 0. And as you can see, we have 12 and 13 for the key switches. Now, I'm going to do something real quick because, of course, I've already done this, so I'm going to show you the finished product for mine, just real quick. Okay, so you see here, this is what I was talking about. We have these for different sections, and we only have one for timpani. But in the woodwinds, we just have 3. So I did the same thing: mod wheel, note on velocity, 12, 13 plus legato, and then we have staccato. I don't think I did the double tongue. I just did staccato just to keep it simple because I don't really use double tongue in any of my stuff, so I didn't feel the need for it at the time. But we have staccato, same thing, mod wheel, velocity for attack type, and D0, D-1. Now I'll show you what I'm talking about for one thing. Like the strings, they have a few more articulations. So like here, for consordino, so quick. Let's see, yeah. Sordino, sus, vibrato. So we would call that plus mute for the mute. Tremolo, that should be tremolo dot unmeasured. Trust me, if you have tremolo, make sure it's that, because it's going to help when we get to the Sibelius section. All right, and then trill. Okay, so for tremolo and trill, another thing is that these should be checked as multi-note samples. So if we do this right, it'll just hold out one note and trigger the articulation for tremolo or trill. Otherwise, it's literally gonna put each note that you're trilling, and we kind of don't want that because it's gonna add a lot of voices, and we don't want that. So this is what the finished product looks like for this particular library. Brass is the same thing. Basses is a little bit different. Measured. And then timpani plus tremolo dot unmeasured. Yeah. make these multi-notes and save it. All right, so now you know what this looks like. This is it. I only had 3 articulations in this library that were kind of viable. You may have more, which is fine, but you know, this is the basic idea. And here I'll show you. I'll show you one of my other ones where it has a lot of articulations in it. Oh, wait. My bad, y'all. That's the wrong thing. I should have opened this one. So this is one of the examples where I used a controller instead of a key switch. So there's that. But see, we have plus legato, plus flare tongue, marcato, etc., going down the list to cover all different types of articulations. This is generally what it looks like. But once you got all the articulations down, really just put plus and then the name of the articulation. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then we'll be able to double check our work when I show you guys how to find it in Sibelius. Okay? Oh wait, I should open the test. All right. So we got that. Plus staccato. I hope I spelled it right. It should be D0 though. Yeah. D-1, actually D0 bumped it up an octave. So yeah, that's the switch types. And you guys, if you need to, pause this video, rewind it, take your time, follow through with it again. I tried to go slow but kind of fast at the same time just to get all the information out there. But don't be afraid to pause this and look again. If you have any questions, please comment in the comment section. All right, so now that we have, or if you have all the articulations that you need or want out of your library, here's another reason why I said to use samples that had multi-articulations instead of individual articulations in the first video. It's precisely because of this. So it's a lot easier to see this type of stuff and to implement it when it comes into place. So we no longer need contact up if you're done with the articulations. So we could close that out. And the next thing we're on is the Programs tab. Now, this is the Programs tab. This is where you assign instruments to Sibelius. You tell Sibelius what instruments you're using. And this will become important when we get to Sibelius. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on New to add a new one. As you can see, we have the name, sound ID / drum map. So we're going to go down here. The first thing we're going to do is name it. So the first instrument I have is, what was it, flutes? I sure hope so. We have the flutes. And the type is either going to be a sound or it's going to be a drum map. And drum map, that's something that we're going to cover in the next video because that's just as big as this entire program by itself. There's a lot of information to cover in the drum maps. So we're just going to stick to programs and then go to the preview. So this is sound because it's sound and not in a drum map. So we're going to leave it there. Sound ID, this is where I was telling you the difference. It's not going to be plus flutes, plus clarinets and stuff like that. Again, at the end of this video, we'll have timestamp and I'll show you how to do it in Sibelius, okay? So I'm just gonna do it real quick. Generally, you're gonna have the family that it comes from. It's gonna be wind, and these options will come up as you get closer to what you want. It's gonna be wind for the family, and then the type of instrument it is. So this one in particular is gonna be flutes with the S, and then dot, and then you're gonna get more specific with the name of the instrument, which here is flute. And you can leave it there. You can see that all these other ones have articulations or different types of flute. Like if we went a piccolo, we would put that, but we just want flute. So we're just gonna leave it at wind.flutes.flute. So family, instrument type, specific instrument. We're not gonna add the articulations because that's what we have the switch types for. All right. Next up is the volume type. This is just for the instrument. This is separate from the articulations. So your articulations might have a different way of accessing the sound than your main instrument. I believe in this one it's the same. Let me see. Let me just check my old one. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, so we have volume type, attack type, which is generally the same. There's some instances where it's different, like in my Spitfire. I have different things going on because I wasn't seeing the velocity move and stuff. But the next part is the switch type. And we only have one. If we had more switch types, like for brass or strings, those would come up as well. And this is the family that belongs to. And generally, when you're working with libraries, such as like the Symphony series, the key switches will be kind of similar to each other. So that's why I break it up into different sections. So see, we have woodwinds, brass, string, or if you don't want any, you could just click the X button. Same for this, for attack and volume types. Wait, yeah. Multi-note sample, no, leave that. That's fine. That's just good for articulations. So you know how we could put articulations here, like dot staccato. If we wanted to, that's what that's for. But we're not doing that, so we're gonna leave it there. Channels, we're gonna uncheck all these. And what's gonna happen is that when we start to implement these, we're gonna implement them by our contact presets. So we have 4 different instances of contact up at a time. This is in theory, right? This is what I do for Symphony series. So for woodwinds, they'll have 1 instance of contact, brass, percussion, and strings, right? These channels refer to what channels are in those single instances of contact. So for example, the flutes, this is why I said do everything in score order too. The flutes will be channel 1 no matter what. In your DAW, in Sibelius, in the sound set editor, in Contact, it's always going to be channel 1. Okay? In this case, you might start off with piccolo, but whatever. So within the woodwind instance of Contact, flutes are going to be on channel 1. Let's say we're going with, we're going to add trombones. Now, trombones will be in a different instance of contact. It'll be in the brass instance of contact. In which case, not trombones. Let's do French horns. Same scenario. Within the horn instance of contact, French horns are going to be channel number 1. Okay? I repeat that. So we have flutes within the woodwind instance of contact is going to be on channel 1. French horns within the brass instance of contact is going to be on channel 1. And that's how we would do this accordingly. So I'm going to pull up my original one, my master Symphony series, so I can show you guys. Hopefully I did this in score order. Yes, I did. So since I did this in score order, we'll go right down the line. See? So flutes is channel 1 in my woodwinds, oboes 2, clarinets 3, bassoons 4. Now we're moving on to the brass instance of Kontakt. And as you can see right here, trumpets are on channel 1. Horns should be on channel 2. Trombones, tubas, channels 3 and 4. So they're not actually overlapping or playing on the same channel. They're using different instances to gather it, and that's where the channels are coming from. And that's what these channels are about. Okay? I hope that was really clear. If it wasn't, comment down below and let me know. I'll do my best to make it more clear. But it will become clear once we get to the Sibelius section. So if anything, just believe me for right now. And when we get there, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay? So once we have created that, bank high and bank low and program. I wouldn't worry about these. I wouldn't worry about these right now. I don't think they do much for what we're doing. You can definitely, if you use stuff like that, then you know what it is. I don't use stuff like that, so I don't know what it is. I leave it alone, and it tends to work for me. So I don't have any problems as long as I don't mess with bank high or bank low or the program. And I know program is if you want to change instruments and stuff, but we have no need for that. So once you have one instrument, don't click on new when you want to add a new one. Click on duplicate, because you remember this whole list of stuff that we had to do to unclick it, and yeah, that's gonna get very tedious. So instead, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna duplicate, and that works out for the most part, because all you really have to do is change the names. So I know oboes are my second one, and then win.oboes.oboe. That's all we need right there. Mod wheel attack type and switch type are all the same as in the flutes. And we click number 2. Again, duplicate, clarinets. And since this is in score order, it'll be very good. All the same. Last one, we have bassoons. Bassoons. And then that's on channel 4. And once you have that, that's it. You would do this for every instrument that you have. And so once again, I will show you the master. So flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons. And then we go on to the brass section, which is trumpets, horns, trombones, tubas. Then we're going to the percussion section, timpani, the orchestral percussion, which is just like, it's all the percussion instruments. And like I said, that'll be a separate video because it's a bit of a beast. And you can see that this is a bit different. It doesn't have a switch type, and both volume and attack type are controlled by velocity rather than mod wheel or expression. We have the glockenspiel, xylophone, vibraphone, marimba, tubular bells, and then we go to the strings, or celesta. Then we go to the strings, and we see that we have the sound ID. This one's a little bit different. If you guys are just using it for strings, just put violin. For violin 1 and 2. I did one for both because it's a bit easier. So we got violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, and basses. As you can see, the numbers were always going. So violin 1 is number 1 within the string section. So let me just go over this real quick. So for violins, that's generally what it looks like for violin 1 and 2. Sometimes this makes it a bit wonky to where it can't distinguish one instrument from the other. So to remedy that, you can create your own custom sound IDs, but proceed with caution on this. If your instrument is there, use it. If not, comment below if you have any questions about this, and I'll be able to help you out. You know, I could test it out and see how it would react. But violin 1 is a custom thing, and again, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll show you again at the end in the Sibelius section where I show you how to access these things. So that's really it for the program. I told you guys this was going to be the biggest section. Well, I said switch types was, but programs turned out to be pretty big too, just because of how important it is to understand how your sound is getting routed. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Please let me know. I'll help you out as much as I can. These last two sections we'll just kind of smash together. We have the drum maps. If you kind of want to get started to understanding what this is on your own, it automatically comes with the general MIDI percussion, and that kind of gives you an idea of where to go and what to do. But I have my own where I use the Symphony series stuff, and again, we'll get into this because it's a beast. It'll be a different video entirely. I might not even use Symphony series. I might use a different one, but that's the drum maps. Stay tuned for that video. Preview. To some of you guys, this might look familiar. To others, you might be like, what's going on? So basically, everything in here is scripted, and this is the script for it. So what you can do is you can copy if you want, and this is good for if you want to get a batch full of things done at one time. Let's say you didn't listen to me and you just kept clicking on new whenever you would have a new instrument, and then at the end of it you're like, do I really have to go through and unclick these? Yeah, you do. Or you can do this. You could go to preview, copy, and then let's open this. Yeah, let's open this in with CodeWriter. So if you have a CodeWriter or something similar, you can use that and it'll open the sound set editor and what it's doing. So you'll come down to the bottom, down to the section where it says, so we got header, which is general, control types, volume types. These are all the tabs. Switch types, patch list is actually the programs. So this is where we want to look at right now. We don't want to look at the drum maps. We can close that. So we see that these new programs, the MIDI patch channel mask. All right, so let's say we want them all to be one. We would find something that has one. We would copy that. So this is on channel 1, right? The timpani. Where is it? Yeah. See, it's on channel 1. And we will go to where it says channel mask, blah, blah, blah. And then copy that. Let's hit Control C. And then you can even do this. You can hit that and then replace it with one that says 1. Violin 1 is also on channel 1. And then hit replace all. And you see it change those very quickly. So you go to save, and then let's reopen this. Now let's look at this program. Look at that. They're all on channel 1. So that's kind of what the coding stuff is there for. If you're not into it, don't worry. Just follow this exactly how I said, and you shouldn't have a problem. But yeah, that's the drum maps and the preview. Drum maps will be later video. Thanks for sticking around. I will show you guys how to find the sound IDs and whatnot in Sibelius now. To find the various different types of sound IDs, the first thing we're going to do is open up Sibelius, of course. I'm pretty sure there's a list of these things somewhere, but I think it's kind of easier just to find it in Sibelius. Once it opens up, there we go. Let's go to new score. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the play option, and at the top we have this thing called the dictionary. We're gonna click on that. Now this is where you can find the sound IDs to any articulation you're looking for. Let's say we're looking for staccato. There we have staccato, spiccato right here next to each other. We can see that right here is the sound ID. And just like I said, it's generally plus staccato, plus the articulation name. These different areas, you can find it too. And we'll be setting up Sibelius in another video, so don't worry. Articulations. Here's what I mean by plus tremolo unmeasured. Yeah, that's what that should be. But if you were looking for marcato, you can find it right here too. So this is where you find the articulations in the dictionary. And it's always good to just kind of look at these and see what it is. You can manipulate it. Again, proceed with caution. I would play within the rules first, color inside the lines as it were, and then, you know, create your own masterpiece once you get a hang of, you know, color coding, essentially. Now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you, is where to find the sound IDs for your instruments. And this will come in handy when we get into the drum mapping stuff. Okay, so within that same play tab, we're going to go to where it says setup and hit this drop down menu. And then we're going to go to preferred sounds. And these are the sound IDs for your instruments. So you remember how I was saying, for instance, the flute was the family, the instrument type, and then the specific instrument. I'm going to show you what I mean. So if we wanted to add a flute, we would go to the family, which is wind. Then we go to flutes, which is the family, and you can see we have a whole bunch of different types of flutes. We have some ethnic flutes, whistle, recorder, breathly, and then we just have flute, right? But then even if you go to flute, you got piccolo, alto, contralto, contrabass. You know, flutes I never even heard of before, to be honest. Like, is a double contrabass flute still a flute at that point? Riddle for another day. But just to keep it simple, you would just have wind.flutes.flute. That's what you would have. And let's say you were looking up some obscure instrument like the hurdy-gurdy is pretty popular now. I've been hearing more and more about it lately. So we would just kind of look that up. Like, where would that be? Oh, look at that. It's a string instrument. So strings, hurdy-gurdy. If you have a VST of a hurdy-gurdy, this is where you can map it to. Okay, a little bit more obscure. Let's go to horns, tubas. Look at that. We have sousaphone. Or you can even do... Oh, right. Wait, the one I'm thinking of is Cimbasso. That's what I was thinking of. So yeah, you can do Cimbasso, serpent. I'm not gonna attempt to name that, but you know, these are old instruments. But Sibelius has a lot of this stuff, so most times you won't need to add your own custom ones. And in the times that you do, I don't think I did this for this particular one. For the symphony, I might have. Oh well. But you can see this doesn't naturally come with violin 1 and 2. It's just violin by itself. And let me try opening again so I can show you. Strings, violin. Huh. Well, that's not good. I should probably look into that. It should be showing up. Oh. Yeah, I'll look into that. But the point is, you can make your own custom ones if you want, and it'll still work if you can find it. But yeah, that's where you would find the articulation sound IDs. Again, play tab dictionary. And then for the instrument sound IDs, play tab, setup drop down menu, and you go to preferred sounds. You could find it all there. Here we are at the end of this. I know this was a tough one to get to, but I truly, truly thank you if you got this far. I honestly do. Please do leave a comment below, like, share, and subscribe. It's the best way to get it out to everyone else. If you know someone else who might enjoy this, share it with them. Tell them about it. I think it's a really good way to still use notation and get into your DAW at the same time. And I know it's a bit of a slow burn, but please stay with me, and we'll eventually get to it. Next video should be on Monday, the 28th of June for part 3. That'll be the drum map. Unless you guys want me to continue on without getting to the drum map, and I could do the drum map later, let me know in the comments. Again, if you're this far, anything would be cool, honestly. But thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.